What's up everybody and welcome to the channel. In today's video we have the 2024 Nissan Z Nismo against my manual Toyota Supra. We're going to do a side-by-side comparison. Is the $68,000 Nissan Z Nismo a good competitor against the Supra? When you look at pricing, the Toyota Supra starts with the 3.0 engine around $55,000, topping out around $60,000. Now there is a $66,000 45th anniversary edition, which is realistically a sticker and a spoiler, so not really the direct competitor since it's mechanically the identical vehicle as a 3.0 premium. However, the Nissan Z, a good $8,000 more expensive. Now on to the performance. Underneath the hood of the Nissan Z Nismo, you're going to find a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6 with 420 horsepower and 384 pound-feet of torque. It is only paired to the 9-speed automatic transmission. This is rear-wheel drive, can do 0 to 60 in about 4 seconds, weighs in at 3,700 pounds. Moving on to the Toyota Supra, you're going to find the 3-liter inline 6-cylinder turbocharged engine with 382 horsepower and 368 pound-feet of torque. This car is either paired to an 8-speed automatic transmission or the 6-speed manual. It is rear-wheel drive, weighs in around 3,400 pounds, and the automatic can do 0 to 60 in 3.8 seconds. Now, as far as exterior styling goes, purely subjective, I do think the Nissan Z looks fantastic. 10 times better than the normal Z. It looks awesome. Toyota Supra, gorgeous car, as you'd expect. Lots of curved lines. Both cars have the long hood, the low-slung rear end for that coupe appearance. I don't think you can complain with either car. I love all the red accents you're going to find on the Nismo. You got the big brake calipers all around. Clean looking rear end. Supra has a little bit more sculpture to it with all the curves to it. But honestly, both of these sports cars are fantastic. Nismo really stands out. Supra, once again, gorgeous car. So comment below, which one do you think looks better? I think they are a tie. Both are beautiful. Moving to the interior, you're going to notice in the Supra you get a BMW interior. So you have some nice refinements. There is some plastics on the doors, a little bit of padding on the armrest, and then a really nice comfortable set of bucket style seats. All the power controls, very comfortable soft materials. You do have some carbon fiber on the interior, nice tech as well, nice screen and everything. Just a good look overall. A little bit of a digital gauge cluster, not too many configurations, but a good look overall. And then for visibility over that right shoulder, not too bad for a coupe. Taking a look at the Nissan Z Nismo, this is a little bit older interior, very similar to the 15-year-old 370Z. You're also going to get a nice screen in the center, digital gauge cluster, which does look a little bit better than the Supra. Favorite part is the Recaro bucket seats, and these are going to be all manual controls. A much stiffer design, however, for a sports car, that's the kind of seat you're going to want. So a little bit more aggressive, very similar view over the left side. A little bit cheaper of an interior comparing it to the Supra. However, nonetheless, the Nismo accents with the steering wheel and the seats certainly give it a sporty vibe. So one of the biggest things you're going to notice with this Supra, being that it is built with BMW parts in a BMW factory, this is a really nice place to be. In the normal drive mode, this is super comfortable, it feels refined. For honestly less than 60 grand, this feels like a ton of car for the money. These seats are very well padded, very nicely supportive as well. They go up your leg, the backrest feels good. Bolsters are adjustable, you can make them tighter. I mean, this is a good car for GT cruising. It just feels refined. But then also when you take the turns, the seats hug you nicely. The steering in normal mode is nice and relaxed. I mean, this is genuinely a very nice car to be in. One of the absolute best cars for the money, especially given you can buy this for under $60,000. Cool thing with the Supra, when you hit the sport mode, it stiffens up the suspension dampers, it stiffens up the steering, adjusts the tuning of the engine. Of course, you get more pops and things off the exhaust. It really sharpens up the way the car drives. The fact that you can get a manual is a huge plus. I love rolling through the gears in this car. The ZF 8-speed is also fantastic. It's super quick. So the Supra it gives you everything you could ever want at, honestly, an affordable price point. It is a joy to drive this car. Power-wise, from the B58, it is actually pushing 400 to the wheels. So even though technically this has like 40 less horsepower than the Nissan Z Nismo, When you dyno this car, I dynoed this and it makes 400 to the wheels. I think it was like 415 or something like that. So this is a faster car. It's an underrated motor. BMW and Toyota just don't tell you how much power it actually makes, but these make really good power. Both cars with tuning make some stupid power, so you're not gonna drive one and think it's slow. But yeah, Supra, slow speed things, heavy steering in the sport mode. The 6-speed manual also, if you at least compare the normal Z, 10 times better. This is super responsive, so notchy. Power delivery is super smooth as you make its way up the revs. And I have a ton of experience in the automatic. I owned a 2020 Supra for 2 years, have had this car for 1 year now. Handling in this car too, it is so tight. Steering is direct, there is no body roll. The brakes work really well. I mean, this car is just so responsive. It feels also just very flat in the turns, and everything you do with it, the car just absolutely does. It is fun in both circumstances, whether you're ripping on this car. Took it on a mountain trip not too long ago, and it handles on rails. So much grip from the Michelin tires. It is genuinely a blast. So driving this in the standard drive mode, automatic and everything, you can already tell this is a stiffer chassis. It feels much more tight. It feels like a car that's kind of for the track, for the performance driving. Now when you compare this to the normal Z, 10 times different. This is so much stiffer and tighter. The normal Z basically is the soft, kind of boring car, quite honestly. This already feels really tight comparing it to the Supra in the normal mode. This doesn't really have any drive modes. You can toggle drive mode over here into Sport and Sport Plus. Realistically, all it does is make the transmission a little bit quicker to respond, might make throttle response tighter, but it doesn't really do much. This car is how it comes. It is a sports car in sport mode from day one. The Supra, you can go back and forth from comfortable conservative BMW, and then when you hit the sport mode button, you're in a fun, sporty car that's just tight and hunkered down. This car is always hunkered down, which isn't a bad thing. Now it costs $8,000 more without that, so it's kind of a drawback given it is more expensive. However, this is just as fun in the fun driving. The steering actually feels like a tighter ratio than the Supra. It feels a little bit heavier. And honestly, my car has lowering springs that are a little bit stiffer than stock. This suspension does feel a little bit stiffer, and the body on this car feels a little bit more rigid. So when you're purely comparing the sports carness, the fun factor, this does feel like it's a little bit tighter. Now it is overall slower than the Supra. The Supra is going to get it by a couple tenths of a second, and this does weigh more, so honestly the Supra still is going to handle more nimble, but the suspension in this car does feel a little bit sharper and a little bit just tighter. Now the 9-speed transmission in the standard Z is awful. The tuning's just horrible, it's way too slow. This feels almost as good as the ZF 8-speed, so I really don't have any issues with this automatic. The fact that there's no manual is definitely a drawback. I love rowing through the gears in my Supra, and while the Supra's manual is a significant improvement over the normal Z's manual, I would have loved to see a Nismo tuned manual in this car. It would have just been so good, especially when you look at the Nismo used to only come in manual. Then they offered both, and now just auto. The acceleration is fantastic. You're not gonna think either one is slow. They are both fast cars. Going through the same sweepers. I mean, I am just in this seat so well. It's a sporty bucket. Paddles are responsive. Brakes are great. It rockets out of turns and just handles so fun. This is such a fun car to drive. It really is so much fun. Now, when you tone this car down into the standard mode, automatic, again, you don't feel much of a difference aside from it going to a higher gear. Steering, I don't think changes at all. It's really hard to tell. It still feels the same. And the suspension, like I said, it's still bumpy, harsh, and everything like that. So it's kind of hard to compare these two just because This is always in sport mode. The Supra goes back and forth, which is awesome to be able to buy a $60,000 sports car that can be comfortable and refined feeling and modern, but then you press a button and everything sharpens up. This car doesn't have that flexibility. This is only hardcore, basically. Now, driving back to back, not talking about pricing just yet, strictly driving, they are both equally as fun, honestly. I don't have any complaints with how this drives as a sports car. I don't mind the automatic. If I were to get automatic to automatic, I think it's a toss-up. They're both absolutely fun to drive. Now, some of the drawbacks, the fact that this car is about $8,000 more expensive, I don't really see why it is $8,000 more. It is an older platform, it is heavier, it is not as nice on the interior. The gauge cluster is fantastic, it is nicer than the Supras. However, this is all 370Z. There is a lot of 370Z in here, which is a very dated platform. That is back from about 2008. That is a heck of a long time ago. So you get a dated car, a dated platform with the Z. Materials are fine. The seats are amazing. I absolutely love bucket seats. And personally, I would take manual adjusting bucket seats over the comfortable plush Supra seats all day long. I like the hardcore feeling. But, you know, you're going to see some of the cheaper things in this car. But, fun factor, they're just as fun. Just as fun. I kind of almost would pick this over an automatic Supra, to be honest, if they were the exact same price, particularly because of these bucket seats. I don't really care about the cheap 370Z interior aspects in this. I love the bucket seats enough to where I would choose this car just because of the seats and disregard the old stuff in it. Just as fun, just as nimble, just as fast. It has everything you want in a sports car. And these seats to me are just kind of that extra icing on the cake, but only if they were the same price. So the price is kind of what kills it. However, if you want a manual, of course, save a lot of money and get a manual Supra. But it's definitely a toss-up. Car for car, though, I think they are very, very strong competitors to each other, disregarding the price point. Alright, so after driving the Nismo Z back-to-back with the Toyota Supra, ending thoughts. I think the Supra is a significantly better value. The fact that it is about $8,000 to $10,000 cheaper, sub $60,000 car with those drive modes, you know, the adaptive suspension, the tuning, the steering, so many different configurations with how it's designed, the adaptive aspects of this car, that is a lot of car for the money. Fun factor, they're both about the same. I have no problem with either car. I think this is the Z to get. The other Z lineup to me just aren't worth it. This is where it's at. This is a proper sports car. It is fun, it is fast, it is exciting, there's character. This is the perfect Nissan Z. I wouldn't mind a manual though. But as far as value goes, the Supra is definitely a better value. I think it's maybe if you're just not as interested, you don't really care too much about the price difference, and you just want a fun car, and if you're just not too interested in the refinement levels, the Z, there's no shortcomings. It's a great car. It's absolutely a blast. Yes, you're going to have an older interior, cheaper materials to where, you know, it feels a little on the old side, but nonetheless, the fun factor is totally there to where, I mean, you're going to have an absolute blast driving in this car. So car for car, it's a complete toss-up. I think they are complete direct competitors, perfectly different, perfectly the same in some ways. So they both have a lot going for them that make them similar, and then they're also both very different. You know, the Supra can go from that luxury European refined car to that sports car. The Z Nismo is always in sports car mode. So it's a toss-up. Comment below, love to hear your thoughts, but I wouldn't say no to either of these cars, quite honestly. If you enjoyed the video, give it a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button. I'll see you all in the next video.